The first panel discussion today uh, on the broader theme of reimagining future education. We have the panel on improving learning outcomes from schools to universities. We have a stellar panel. Uh, I will introduce one by one the eminent panelists for this panel discussion. I first invite Dr. Bhavani Shankar Subramanian, who is Director, Strategy, Research and Innovation, Heartfulness International School, Omega Branch. Next, I would like to invite Mrs. Manasa T. Pillai, who is Trustee and Principal, Shrine Velangani Institutions. Next, I would like to invite Dr. Maheshwari Natarajan, who is Director, AM Jain School. Next, I would like to invite Mr. G. Gaudama, who is Director, Secretary, Palar Center of Learning, Pathshala, Krishnamurti Foundation, India. Next, Dr. S. Alia Parveen, who is an Associate Professor in English at Justice Bashir Ahmad Syed College for Women, Chennai. I will give a much longer introduction later once I call them to when their turn comes. The theme for today's panel is improving learning outcomes from schools to universities, a very broad theme which can go into a lot of discussions. We have already heard about the transformative power of education from our Honorable Chancellor. We also heard about the beauty of liberal education from our Deputy Vice Chancellor. But let's come to the reality. The reality from the point of view of stakeholders in education. You look at a student, he or she goes to school, and where the parents expect the student to prepare for NEET, JEE, CLAT. If it's an international school, mainly to build your portfolio. That's the expectation of the parent. In law, we have a concept in constitutional law. What is gambling? And in gambling, we say that if there is an element of luck, it's gambling. If there is an element of skill, it is not gambling. So it depends on the element of luck and skill, whether central government has the power to tax or the state government has the power to tax. I'm not going into the fight between Stalin and Modi, but coming to the question, many a time when I see NEET, JEE, CLAT results, I think that these examinations are a glorified form of lucky draw, masquerading as skill testing skills. So we have students who have to go through this, and we also have a set of parents, and I am coming from the field of law, especially during this time when the CLAT results are out, I get frantic calls from my schoolmates, okay, who are now in IT and other fields, saying that, my daughter wants to do law. It's like, how can they do that? And when we talk to students, and especially I am also heading the School of Law at Sai University, I feel this huge generation gap between me and my younger faculty members. I don't understand what they are saying. So like Manu S. Pillai, the young historian, I don't ask them openly. Now I am asking you openly. Some of my faculty members are there. What coconut are you talking? I don't understand anything. And they, in their mind, yesterday they told openly, you are Oxford. And I felt so proud that even though I haven't gone to Oxford, I've got the degree from Oxford. Then somebody ratted out to me what Oxford means. An ox pulling a Ford car. So the students think that their parents, their teachers are putting them to what can be called Oxford system, where ox is pulling their Ford car, where they don't have the freedom. We also have teachers. I again remember my conversation with a young faculty after his first class. I asked, how are the first year students? He said that first year students, they are in class 13. Okay, they are not in college, they are not in university, they are class 13. From class 12, they have become class 13. So what are we speaking about? When you speak about learning outcome, we have the Bloom's taxonomy. Are we still at remember stage, or are you climbing step by step? I don't know. The philosophical foundations of Bloom taxonomy and all I am not going into, but are you reaching that level of creativity? So what are the learning outcomes and how to improve these learning outcomes, and who determines the learning outcomes? Whether it's the student, the parents, the society, or the teachers, who frames the learning outcomes? These are the important questions which come up, and we have a stellar panel, as I mentioned. We don't have much time. We have a very eminent panel, so I think that we will have 4 minutes each for an opening remark. Then we will have some discussion and take some questions from the audience. So first I invite Dr. Bhavani Shankar Subramaniam. As I mentioned, he is Director Strategy, Research and Innovation at Heartfulness International School, Omega branch. He holds advanced qualifications in research and management, along with teaching and training certifications. He is an accomplished academic leader with a deep understanding of strategic leadership in the education sector. He is also a board member of Chennai Sahodaya. The Central Board of Secondary Education launched the Sahodaya movement mainly to experiment with several nationwide programs, projects, and activities for educational renewal and improvement. He is a distinguished educationist with vast experience across various sectors, including social enterprises, environmental sustainability, academic research, and education at the post-secondary and K-12 levels. He has been instrumental in driving institutional excellence and fostering transformational change within educational organizations. His work focuses on curriculum design, professional training, and innovation, aiming to build capacity in education and improve student well-being. Over to you, Dr. Bhavani Shankar. You can sit there and talk. Yeah.
It's very interesting that Professor Sriju touched upon the outcomes, and my opening remarks would definitely have a pitch on the outcomes, I would say, but then whose outcomes are these? When we talk about expectations, so who are the stakeholders that contribute to these expectations? So when we are designing assessments, we talk about results. And what pops up in front of the school is the top 15, 20 students' efforts that generally pops out and say that our students scored 499 upon 500, and the family discusses about the 1 mark lost. So I would say to a large extent we have a very myopic opinion about what outcomes are. Primarily, I would also discount what is being recognized as learning outcomes. I would rather talk about behavioral outcomes, the journey that the child takes for 15 years in school, and the end of 15 years, what the educators make of this journey. Is the child able to narrate the story of this journey in a meaningful way that the institutions of higher learning, the post-secondary spaces, make sense of what the child has picked up? If I may go on to say, at the cost of being reprimanded by my fellow educators here, we are actually transferring a responsibility that we did not shoulder for 15 years to colleges and universities such as Sai University to make sense of a 4-year education that you provide to get the students ready for life. So if this is the conversation that talks about the required transitional gaps to be addressed, we should be looking at long-standing behavioral outcomes which would impact a sustained practice and consistent practice by the students that could go on to say, yes, these students have been well prepared for post-secondary education in life. I am taking strings of thoughts and ideas from Shri Ramani and Ma'am the Deputy Vice Chancellor who just spoke. So, and recall my friend Naveen's discussion about Eric Hoffer, I guess. So where the point is that the learners would be inheriting the change that is happening, and the learner would be gleefully unaware and be prepared for a world that would no longer exist. Is that right? Okay, so that's right. So it clearly says that the directions that we are taking in addressing what the learner should pick up may be skewed and biased, and the only way we can make sense of it is to join hands with the post-secondary landscape. I'm talking wearing the hat of an educator of a K-12 institution, and go ahead and say these outcomes may not necessarily be driven by domain-specific or scholastic or subject area specific needs, but to make sense of the interconnectedness of things, the embedded interdisciplinarity or the transdisciplinarity or the multidisciplinarity that exists within it, that goes on and says that, hey, you know what, one outcome is actually linked to another, which is linked to another, and the only way the post-secondary landscape is going to make a sense of it is for us to demonstrate through sustained behavior what these outcomes are. I mean, that's where I would stop.
Thank you very much. I think there are a lot of questions, I think, which would come up. We will have a detailed discussion. Next, I would like to call Dr. Maheshwari Natarajan to share her thoughts. Before you start, a brief introduction. As I mentioned, she is the director of A.M. Jain School of Management, Meenambakam, Chennai. She started her career as a kindergarten teacher and has risen through the ranks of the education sector, driven by a passion for improving education standards. Dr. Natarajan is particularly focused on establishing quality education in rural areas and enjoys the challenge of transforming schools to achieve high standards. She is actively engaged in sharing her expertise and learning from the experience of others in the field. She is a master trainer for CBSE, Center for Excellence. She is also qualified assessor of NABET, Quality Council of India. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much for that introduction. Is that an indication from above? I'll take off from the title of the topic. I would like to just change one word there. Instead of saying improving, I would like to substitute it with expanding. Because improving somehow suggests that something has not been done right and we are doing it right. So I'm not going to hand over that baton to the higher education. We are expanding on the skills or the learning outcomes that have already been established in a school setup, which moves on to the higher education setup. I hope that's okay with the moderate. Right. And point two, when Mr. Shiju was talking about class 13, that is exactly what they are. When our children pass out of primary and they come to middle school, the first thing that we as teachers say, you're a grown-up child now. What was the difference in age? Just 2 months. That's exactly what's happening here. The months of May and June have just passed from a child moving on from a school to a college. So the first years are definitely class 13, and I think somewhere we need to keep that focus in our minds while we are dealing with them. Maybe the aging is exponential when they go from year 2 to year 3 in the UG classes. But that initial phase is, they are neither here nor there, and they are still adolescents. In the angle of a psychologist, I would totally agree that we need to give them that space. So having said that, just to recount, what are the kinds of learning outcomes that we focus on in school? So you rightly asked a question, who is deciding these outcomes? The outcomes are generally decided by the CBSE or the IB or whatever is the curriculum that is there. And by and large, we focus on 20 plus outcomes in a school. Some of which are personal, some of which are social, some of which are academic. So I'm going to leave out the academic outcomes that we are doing, all the literacy and the numeracy outcomes, and maybe quickly list us through the outcomes that we expect a child who passes class 12 to have. Right? So apart from the 21st century learning skills of the 5 C's, definitely not going into a 5C concept here, but just to improve, just to retreat on it. The communication skills, both the verbal and the non-verbal. The skills that I am listing here today are asserted, are insisted, and are taught during our academic, curricular, as well as co-curricular classes that we have. They are also taught after school, before school, whenever possible. Right? So the communication skills, the problem-solving skills, not just in the terms of academic problems in numeracy problems in physics or biology or mathematics, but in other ways also, social problems, peer problems, etc., etc. Time management, which is a major skill that children do, especially because of the short tests, the long tests, the exams, etc., etc. Then we have the organization, both of the self as well as of their subjects. So that is a very, very major skill that we are teaching them. We look at teamwork and collaboration through various activities like project day, sports day, their inter-school, their intra-school activities, all of this team management and collaboration. We teach social responsibility through our outreach programs like the NCC or the NSS or maybe the Interact or whatever else that we have, Karuna Club, whatever it may be. We have the concept of self-discipline. I must say that as school educators, we weave in the concepts of value education also into our academic as well as non-academic activities. At every point of time, the values, especially the indigenous values that we expect children to have, are woven in some way or the other into all of these activities. Apart from this, the personal skills like self-confidence, self-motivation. Every child, every last child in the class is expected to do certain things. They are encouraged to do certain things. So this is where the concept of self-confidence and self-motivation is insisted upon. And yes, research and inquiry to the basic extent, not as much as maybe a college would give them opportunities for. But the projects that we do, both for the exam as well as during the classes, starting right from class 1, whether it is an interdisciplinary project or a subject-based project or any other project, even the concept of project days that we do, skill-based projects, all of these will definitely improve the teamwork and the collaboration and the research that goes into it. And of course the technical and the analytical skills, not just through the computer classes, but in terms of presenting, in terms of having seminars, in terms of having brainstorming sessions, group discussions, etc., etc. And yes, the leadership skills to a great extent. We have our own student councils, most of us. You will agree with me, the school teachers here, when I say that is one of the most sought after panels in a school. The most contested and the most, I think it's worse than the political parties sometimes, the way they come and they, hand out promises. I would say hand out is a wrong word. Dish out promises in the school assemblies to the children, starting from I'll have samosa for 5 rupees in the canteen every day to anything else that goes on. So these are all leadership skills that we do develop during the course of the scholastic years. Ethics is woven into every concept of their academic as well as non-academic activities. Decision-making skills, adaptability. This is one skill that I think every child in the class learns to adapt. I don't think we have heard that classrooms have a lot of fights. Classrooms where the fights are solved by themselves, but the fights in the staff rooms are worse. I'm sure you'll agree with me. I've been in every possible staff room. It's very, very difficult to resolve fights in the staff rooms. As adults, sometimes we take even 20 years to resolve fights. I'm not ashamed to admit it, but that is what is the state of affairs. So children are adaptable. We just need to hone that skill a bit, which I think we are doing. And lifelong learning, yes, to a lot of extent. Independence. The fact that we insist that they are not going to cut, copy, paste any project, but they have to write it out on their own, irrespective of the language of submission. So that is something which again starting from how would you tie your lace from class 1 to, how would you present your record books in the board exam, right through independences. These are all the learning objectives that are not specified. They are ingrained, they are understood, and they are done right through the 14-15 years of scholastic life. And definitely a lot of resilience, which goes without saying, and physical and mental and emotional well-being of a child, especially now in the past 4 years after the NEP has come in a great way. The emotional and the mental well-being of a child is concentrated upon quite a bit. Not only here, but even in every nook and cranny, at least of Tamil Nadu where I've gone, I've seen this being a focus of attention, right? And maybe, just to sum up, the cognitive skills, the personal skills, the research skills, the analytical skills, we lay a base for them in the schools. And hopefully, they are honed to a greater extent in the higher education universities. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. It's reassuring that the learning outcomes and what is expected is the same in both at the school level and at the university level. Thank you very much. Many questions would come, I'm sure. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Gautama, who is Director Secretary, Palar Center of Learning. He holds a bachelor degree in metallurgy from IIT Madras. He is the Director Secretary at Pathshala and is deeply involved in education administration and leadership at Krishnamurthy Foundation, India. He served as the principal of the school KFI for 21 years and was responsible for promoting structural and pedagogical changes, particularly focusing on teacher empowerment. With his background in engineering and as a former scientist at Baba Atomic Research Center, Gautama's education philosophy emphasizes collaborative decision making, team effectiveness, and holistic learning. Over to you, Mr.
The very wonderful session we are having today on reimagining future education. So this is a dream time, and in dream time things are a bit fuzzy. They may not always meet reality exactly as we would like to meet it. So you will excuse me if I'm saying some things which don't exactly match the vision that we have of schooling process. But we are in dream time, so I have a little liberty to speak a little expansively on this. First, I think it was wonderful to listen to Mr. Ramani speaking also about the fact that we seem to have lost something in the course of education in this country. There was a time when India was very, very productive economically. 27% of the world's GDP was coming from this country. And we had schools and we had institutions of learning. But I don't know if we had certifications, I don't know if we had exams, I don't know if we had recognition by boards, etc., etc. So this was a different quality of education at a different time. And this was a very effective process. But they were small institutions and they managed quite a lot. So we don't know exactly what happened, but there seemed to have been a very effective process of learning. Second, in listening to the various schools that are available in Sai University, I thought we must make a distinction. There are two kinds of schools. One is school of learning that you have in universities, and the other is schools where you have only minors. The schools of learning in universities have adults, whereas the schools of learning in schools are minors. And I think that there's a very big difference in how we hold minors, how we teach minors, how we create the atmosphere and the responsibilities of a college or a university where you have adults. So these are two distinct things. And I think there are very interesting variations which are required. So having said that, I think it was good to listen to Mr. Bhavani Shankar saying that the requirements between school and college are the same, and we keep passing on what we could not do in school to colleges. I think we must ask ourselves somebody who's going to be 18 when he or she leaves school, what is this person expected to carry with him or her? This person is an adult going to be voting, can drive, can do other things which one is allowed to do as an adult. But is this person equipped to meet life as an adult? And I'm using the word adult because that's very important. Today, there seems to be a notion that you can do anything at the age of 18 except work. And I think this is a terrible handicap. It's almost like saying you're on the shelf and you're not good for anything unless you go through college. I really doubt and question this. And I wonder if an adult can carry a sense of well-being with this notion pasted on his school leaving certificate. So what are the qualities that's number one. Number two, we all talk about lifelong learning. I think this is very important. Are the attributes of lifelong learning inculcated, built in the processes of school and institutions of higher learning as well? But is this notion clear that learning is not going to stop? That learning is not just means to an end to achieve something, to get into a job, and then after that you stop learning? I mean, is that somewhere? I think it used to be the case when I was in school, that you finish school, you finish college, got into a job, and that was it. This lifelong learning was not there as an idea, but I think it is very real. The third thing is, today we know that there's a tremendous pace of change. We are not teaching for a static world. The person who's growing is not going to go into a static world. You're going to go to a world which is moving. There are disruptions all around. Life is going to change. And therefore, adaptability and readiness for change is important. But this also makes our education that much more difficult. Whatever we are teaching, is it only for a certain context? When I was in college, people were saying IT is going to come, mechanical engineering, civil engineering, these are going to be important things. But today I don't know what can we say to a child who's going to be an adult now, saying what kind of a world do you look forward to? I think we don't know. We have to say we don't know the kind of world that the child is going to inhabit. We know it's going to be more complex. We know there are problems. There are age-old problems. The age-old problems of relationships are there. We don't know how to relate to each other. Gender equality has become a big thing. I tell my senior students that, look, if you can't work under a woman boss, 50% of your opportunities are gone. Now, the sensibility to be able to treat everybody as an equal, is it there? Is choiceless respect embedded in our education? Or is competition and one-upmanship embedded somehow subtly into our education? That the purpose of school is to fit you into college and to fit you into high-earning bracket. Is that it? But you look at what's happening with a lot of IT entrepreneurs today. They are walking back, having lived in many different areas, having worked in many areas. They're coming back. They want to do agriculture. They want to grow things. They want to keep their feet on the ground once more. What is the worldview with which we want to offer to children? I think a lot of our education provides, I think it was said in different ways, provides enormous anxiety to the child about the future. Enormous anxiety about the fact that he or she is not going to, he's going to find it difficult to cope, find it difficult to compete, difficult to get a job. Where is the space for the human being to experience the value of one's being? The enjoyment of just being alive in this time. Yeah, you may earn a little more money, a little less money, and I think survival will find in different mechanisms. But I think this thing of anxiety is being programmed into the educational system through measurement. And I am not so sure this is very, very constructive or very meaningful. I would like to say that school is an experience. And in today's world, there are going to be a series of certifications in life as you go through life. The computer industry has taught us this very well. There's no choice about it. Your computer industry also taught us something very important. That whatever we do now, this is version 3.4, and there will be version 8.6 coming down the line. So we are working with imperfections. Imperfection is acceptable. There will be things that can be improved. And this is not a problem by itself. Unfortunately, the educational system with its ranking and with its assessments and testing, we are focusing on the right answers, and I think this is gone. We have entered the zone of dialectics where different possibilities exist. I'm sorry, this is dream time, so allow me this freedom. So, is it important to have only one right answer or multiple right answers? The ability to choose, create multiple answers, some of which you can dismiss. Now, is that sensibility being ingrained in the quality of conversation and the quality of communication with children? And also allowing for the space for wrong answers, to see that you make an attempt and you fail. Failure, I think, must be built into the system. If you can't fail, then you will never experiment. If you can't experiment, you will never have adventure. If you never have adventure, life will be a dull drudgery. Life is not meant to be that for a child. So, these are some thoughts, preliminary thoughts. Maybe there's more to say. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. I wish I could join a school that you are going to start in your dream world. Okay. Mr. Gautama spoke about lifelong learning, and we have a lifelong learner as the next speaker. I can see almost all the degrees that Indian education sector gives in the next speaker. We have Manasa T. Pillai, who is a BE, MBA, B.Ed, MA. You should join School of Law for an LLB next year. She is the trustee and principal of Shrine Velangani Institutions, an innovative and result-driven leader focused on achieving exceptional results in highly competitive environments that demand continuous improvement. Mrs. Pillai holds bachelor's degree in engineering and education with a master's in educational management and business administration. Her expertise in establishing need of our learning experiences in the field of education. She is currently the Chief Education Officer and Principal at Shrine Velangani Senior Secondary School. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Shiju. I'm having severe palpitations. I'm not sure if it's because of a drop in my sugar level or because everybody sitting here is a doctor except me. Mr. Gautama does not require qualifications at all. That's why I said you don't require qualifications. When I read this topic, improving, expanding, enhancing learning outcomes from schools to universities with respect to reimagining future education, I can only think of my two sons. Both of them say the same thing. Schools are just a platform for socialization. And they said this not when they were studying in the school. They said it only when they left the school. So I wonder what is left for us as educationists when we move from schools to universities. All of them, I am going to give only a 2-bit because we have already heard not just 256 bits but 512 bits from all of them. The first bit that I have to share is we need to establish a connect between the school teachers and the faculties of universities. So when we establish that connect, then we are working backwards. We understand the expectations from universities, and then we build upon that and focus better on our primary education and secondary education. The second point is, as Chancellor mentioned, Sai University, India's first international university offering liberal education in arts, sciences, technology, and law. Every step of the way, he indulged and delved into artificial intelligence, into technology. In fact, we had Dr. Krishnamurthy heading a department of data sciences and computing. Every step of the way, he kept connecting technology with law, technology with biotechnology. So technology. We need to integrate technology into every step of the way in our school as well. If I tell you that artificial intelligence is emulating the Guru Sishya model, you might think that I'm crazy. Guru Sishya Parampara model says the teacher appears when the student is ready. Let's take a very hypothetical case. Dr. Bhavani Shankar is entering his one of the classrooms in Heartfulness International School, a classroom of 30 students. There is no teacher there. Definitely he is not going to leave the class and wait for the students to get ready. His first question will be, why is there no teacher here? Exactly. He said it. He will start teaching irrespective of whether the students are ready or not. I imagine I am a 12th standard student, rightly said by Dr. Maheshwari when she introduced me to all the panelists this morning. So I'm going to imagine myself as a 12th standard student who's going to be writing a math paper tomorrow, CBSE or A levels, IGCSE. I have a doubt in differential equations, and even though I have the MS with me, I do not have clarity. So I'm going to open my paid account in ChatGPT 4.01. I'm going to feed the differential equation and the MS. ChatGPT is not going to tell me, Manasa, it's 11 p.m., go and sleep. Neither is ChatGPT going to tell me, you don't even know decimal multiplication. ChatGPT is non-judgmental. Guru Sishya Parampara model, the Guru is non-judgmental. ChatGPT is going to tell me, Manasa, there is a problem in the third step. Why don't you go and check and then get back to me? So I will go and check and then I'll put it down. Then ChatGPT will tell me, Manasa, why don't we try a different method? That way you can actually save time management. Guru Sishya Parampara model, the teacher is a guide. ChatGPT is a guide. Guru Sishya Parampara model handholds the student. ChatGPT is handholding Manasa. Guru Sishya Parampara model, the Guru is a mentor. ChatGPT is soon becoming my mentor. Who knows? Already becoming my mentor. So, please get ready. We have to integrate artificial intelligence and personalized learning. Here, both are personalized learning models. And you never know, the next step is customized, personalized learning. And I'll tell you how it's going to be. Because we have to reimagine future education. We have AI systems. They have everything in it. Data science, all data is fed. They have the NEP, the NCF, the validated Tamil Nadu Government Gazette, the validated Central Board of Secondary Education bylaws, as well as they have all the best practices. So you feed the data of your school system. Let's say you're feeding Manasa's data into it. So it will spit out and say, Manasa loves to travel. Let us teach her differential equations through tourism. So that becomes a customized, personalized learning system, and that is going to be your reimagination of future education?
Thank you very much, Ms. Manasa, for that thought-provoking intervention. Next, I would like to call Dr. S. Alia Praveen, who is Associate Professor in English at Justice Bashir Ahmad Syed College for Women, Chennai, where she has been teaching since 1996, almost 3 decades. She specializes in immigrant literature, diaspora, and has presented papers at various academic conferences. Dr. Praveen is also the Youth Red Cross Program Officer at her college and has won the Best Program Officer Award from the Indian Red Cross Society for her selfless service. She is nominated as the President of the Parents Teachers Association at NKT College of Education. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, sir, for that introduction. Good morning to all the panelists here and all the dignitaries and the educators present here. Oh, very good morning to one and all present here. Well, when I just looked at the topic, improving learning outcomes from schools to colleges, I just wondered, where does the learning outcome actually begin? Right from the time a child is born, the learning outcome is designed by the parents. Even before the child tries to understand himself or his life or what path he is going to take in life, there are the grandparents and the parents who have already decided what he has got to do. What should his learning outcome be? So for the next 12 years of his life, or take the pre-KG, 13 years of his life, there is somebody who has always been shaping, designing, telling him, instructing him that this is the path that you have to tread. And the child has already got that in his mind. He starts working towards it, and the next 12 years is the path designed, formulated by someone with no choice to think ahead. He's stuck there. Very few families allow children to think on their own. And I'm sure 60% of grown-ups have faced that problem. Who might have become a doctor is now a teacher. Who might have been the best teacher is now an engineer. Definitely not by choice, but by chance. Our parents designed it for us, we followed it, and there we are, though successful, doing not something which was of our choice. Well, having said that, the younger generation today, our children, and those who are too small to understand even life, have already decided, as sir was pointing out this morning, a candidate who have already decided what her path would be, which means they know what to judge, how to judge, and they know how to tackle their parents, which is the best learning outcome of life. Understanding life and learning life here becomes the priority. And that is exactly what is happening in India today, which was lacking. This was happening in the Western countries for a very long time, and we never had the opinion or choice to voice out whatever we thought to our parents. Here is our younger generation who are way ahead of us and who know how to decide, how to think for themselves. So the learning outcome has various phases. In the first instance, I told you, it is only the parents who were deciding the outcomes, and we were just clipped birds. We just had to raise our voice, but which we did not. Now comes the next generation who have learned how to have their way. And when it comes to the school level, we have the facilitators and not the teachers anymore. The days when we were studying, we had our teachers, and every word that they told to us was a God word. But today, we have only become facilitators. The day they end school, the last day of school, or whichever institute they take, until then they consider you as a teacher, as somebody who is trying to handhold you. The same student, when he or she comes back to you the next day, it's not a good morning, it's a hi, which means the spirit, the attitude has changed. So in the learning outcome, we have to consider, first we know it was the parents, now we know that the students come with a ASK, ask attitude. They know they have an attitude and an aptitude to learn, and they look up to the teacher for that expectation. Does the teacher have the talent to tap the potential which I already have? He or she wants the skills to be honed. Is a facilitator good enough to tap that potential in a student? And is the knowledge being taken in the right path? So the student is coming there with the ASK, ask model, asking you to mold him into the right path. Here comes the facilitator. The facilitator should be able to have the ART, the art to handle the student. What does this art mean? The art here refers to the attainability of the content that he has already developed, be it for the flipped classroom or for a blended classroom. The input by the facilitator is only one, but the facilitator should remember that the output would come in various forms. Every child is different, every learning style is different, and the expectation of every individual seated there to learn is different. Has the facilitator met the expectation of that young mind? We'll have to bear that in mind. And the content that is delivered, is it time bound? Will it be able to cater to the need of the student? Is it in excess? Are we well prepared for that? Now that is what a facilitator will have to bear in mind. Now, if the facilitator has all these in his purse, then yes, the outcome of the education that he is going to deliver is going to be excellent. And if the student or the learner who has come forward to learn, if he is happy with the facilitator, yes, the outcome is going to be something beyond expectation. A very positive learning outcome would happen. Now, having said the role of the parent, the teacher, and the student, there is another important role which the institution plays. Hats off to Sai University, which is trying to implement the blended learning and liberal education, which is the need of the hour. Because there was a time when the normal formal education was happening. I would like to give my own example, where I rather did my PhD in an interdisciplinary subject, and I had difficulty in obtaining the degree because they told me it was not relevant to my subject, though it was very much relevant. Well, my field is English, and the topic that I chose to study was immigrant literature. I went to a center in the university called the Center for South and Southeast Asian Studies, and there my work was my topic was something to do with Asian writers in literature. Now, I had to really face a big panel, justify, give reasons as to how relevant my subject was and how related it was to literature. I did fight out for 2 years, and I did get my degree, but only after producing an equivalent certificate. Well, Sai University, I am sure, will not look forward for an equivalent certificate, but will appreciate if somebody could think out of the box. I really appreciate Sai University for this initiative, and I look forward to have a good bonding and a good relationship with Sai University. Thank you.